Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the jar. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Health Today. I am your host, Ken Stearns, and another beautiful day in Vegas. That was a little video of me kind of pontificating back about almost 2 years ago as I interviewed people across the country. What would I find as a common thread of conversation or topic or emotion or story? And really the common thread was mental health, as I've shared quite numerous times on this show. And that led me to start the JAR Foundation and ultimately to start this mental health podcast. Bring on the show. And the idea is to go through and hear from them about how they got into the mental health space and what are they doing, really to kind of help address it. And so today, Brian Abel's on. Brian, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a guest.
Well, thank you for having me, Ken. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. I was looking as I was, kind of scan through and try to invite people to the show, people I think will add value to the conversation, the audience. I loved your relational intelligence. It just rings so deep to me, about kind of just how I feel I am sometimes in groups and with people and being able to relate. And I don't know if this is, I didn't read your book, but reading, being able to relate to both groups at one time, being able to flow between people and between situations and between environments, and a bit like EQ, but maybe more, but different. And I just really look forward to hearing what your explanation is, what it actually is, and
Right.
And what you're doing in this space. So again, Brian, welcome to the show. How did you end up in mental health? From where you were.
So I I got my first bachelor degree in psychology back in the day. It's one of those behind me there on the wall. And I didn't necessarily do a lot with it at the beginning. There's not a lot you can do with just a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I kind of floated around doing different things.
Yeah.
Bartended, waited tables, but of course, as a bartender, you are kind of an amateur psychologist. So I did that for a while. And then I got into about 20-ish, almost 20 years ago, I got into emergency medicine. So I worked for a long time in the EMS system. I was a street medic. And so did that. And then I finally decided back in 2016 to go to nursing school. So I figured I didn't want to be, 60, 65 years old, lifting gurneys into the back of ambulances anymore. I knew my back probably wouldn't hold up to that. So it seemed like the next logical step. So I worked my way in, through nursing. I did ED, I did trauma, I did critical care. But around 2019, I kind of happened my way into mental health nursing, and it just kind of happened by accident, but it absolutely became a passion of mine. So since then, I have been working in mental health. Most of my work has been in crisis psychiatric services. I have also, I've also worked in inpatient mental health units as well. So I've kind of seen the whole gamut of, people coming straight off the street in, acute crisis to patients that are a bit more stabilized on medications and things like that, awaiting placement in, different kinds of residential facilities or things like that. I'm here in Phoenix area, the Phoenix, Arizona area, and I feel like we do mental health pretty well. Quite a few resources. So that's my plug for the mental health community in Phoenix right there.
Nice.
I feel like we do a good job. So
Hey, question. Take me back. What was that trigger? What was that? What was that incident or that event in your life that kind of that made mental health kind of cross? We talked about this earlier, like things cross your path, and
right. So so honestly, and this is really kind of what has become my journey here, and
hmm,
becoming becoming comfortable being vulnerable and telling my story.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
right about the time I got into mental health, I think the genesis of it, what sparked my interest in it, was a very traumatic experience that I had. Actually, it was a very short but intense relationship that I had with a woman
hmm.
who was a narcissist, and
Oh goodness,
yes, and the relationship was only about 5 or 6 months, but it it really did a number on me, and it almost destroyed me. It almost destroyed me.
wow,
I, being educated in psychology and things like that,
yeah.
I knew
Like, what happened?
yeah, what happened? You think, you hear narcissism, you hear the term, oh, this person's a
Yeah.
narcissist, that person's a narcissist. I think it's now become a term that we kind of loosely throw around
Okay.
for
Okay.
people who are, they're self-absorbed, that they don't care about other people, but that's not exactly it. There's a little bit more
Yeah.
that goes into it, and um, basically, I learned some lessons, Ken, that I didn't want to ever have to learn.
Yes.
And I learned them the hard way. And I didn't truly know what a toxic relationship was like until I entered into this relationship with this woman. And
Hmm.
it, you know, narcissism it's very, very hard to treat, and it's very hard to, to work with people who are narcissists, because they have no empathy. They don't ever feel like, they're wrong. They have no feelings. They don't care how how their scorched earth policy affects anybody else. It's just
Wow.
they'll just blaze through, gun smoking, and just tear everything down in their path. And what it creates is this trauma bond, which you may have heard
Yeah.
or been aware of. And it's that's what happened with me. So I started dating this woman, and like most relationships with someone who's has narcissistic tendencies, everything seems great at first. They have they have quite the charm. They they love bomb you, which is the word, the technical word, where they, hey, you're amazing. I've never found anybody like you before. It's going to be so different with us. I think I'm falling in love with you 2 weeks after they meet you. Where have you
Yeah.
been your whole life?
Oh, the
It's
hook. It's the hook. The
it's
hook is set.
the hook. So they call it the
Yeah.
love bombing phase, and then comes the discard phase. So shortly after that, like within a couple days, I'm tossed to the side. Oh no, I don't think it's a good time for us to be talking. I mean, we each have our own things going on, and this and that, and I just don't think this is going to work. And 2 days later, he comes back with, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. And so what it does is it gives you, and my book, which isn't
Yeah.
actually, it's not actually released yet. It's going to be released in December. It's called
Okay.
Toxic Breadcrumbs, and there's a reason behind that, because
Yeah.
what happens is, those of us that have been in narcissistic relationships, what these people do is they throw us these little scraps of these little breadcrumbs
Yeah.
of affection here and there, just to keep us hooked. It's like a dopamine hit.
I
It
was
really
going to say it's probably triggering that you've gotten to a point where they're chemically managing your chemicals
it is
almost.
it all has to do with with the chemical processes, because what these intermittent periods
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
affection, it's like a hit of a drug. It really
Yes.
is. And it
Yeah.
keeps you on edge, and it keeps you looking for that next high, of course, like that we like to call it. They
Oh
and
man.
that's what creates the trauma bond. So they throw you these breadcrumbs of affection, then they pull it away. They'll give you a little
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
they'll pull
Yeah.
it away. So
Oh,
it
genius.
creates this trauma bond, and it is genius, but it's very destructive. So it creates this trauma bond that research has indicated that the trauma bond is at times it's harder to break free of that addiction than it is a heroin addiction.
God
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah. It's amazing.
How did
So
you get out?
I found myself completely enamored with this person and would do anything in the world for her. I
Whoa.
set aside any of my own wants or needs or any of my own
Oh
self-care.
man, Brian.
Yeah, no, and it's like I said, Ken, this has taken me a long time to get to the point where I can talk about this and be vulnerable and share this story. And the relationship, it ended. It didn't end well, and it did not end on my terms. It was very messy, and it took me a very long time to process it and get through it.
Yeah.
And it took therapy, and it took a lot of work. And finally, I was able to get to the point where I could hear her name or think about her or have her cross my mind without getting that feeling in my chest like I was going to die.
Yeah, like a knot.
Yes. So the end of that relationship actually made me decide to take a position at the mental health center back in Albuquerque, where I was living at University of New Mexico. I was working at the hospital, the University of New Mexico Hospital. We had a mental health center, and it prompted me. It pushed me in the direction of taking a position in their psychiatric emergency services. And I think it was just part of the journey. It was just part of the journey.
It's part of your journey. Yeah. It's part of your journey. How do you think that's going to, I mean, it's kind of an interesting tool set to bring to pack into your tool set already. You've got this relationship, you've got this nursing going on, you've got this other, this piece. It does kind of start to form a pretty good, you're becoming formed into a tool, I guess, kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I like to think of myself not as much as myself as a tool, but my story,
your story,
and the resources that I have come up with to help other people who are in the same situation. Because I didn't have the resources. I mean, I had a therapist, and I had a very loving, supporting family, which I do. But they didn't understand it. They're like, oh, it's just a relationship. Why can't you get over it? Well, this is not a type of relationship that you can just get over. It's like I said, the trauma bond that is formed is very hard to break. And so, my mission now is to help as many people with a set of tools and a process that I didn't have when I was going through this. And, men go through this, women go through this. They think, lots of people, it's kind of stereotypically, oh, women are usually just the victims of narcissistic or toxic relationships. That's not true. That's not true. It affects us men too. And I really am trying to bring awareness to that part of it, but also awareness to the fact that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And there's a process of, to get through it that works by, finding yourself, getting back to the area, getting back to that moment where you may have, we all have issues in our past. We all can say, hey, we come from the best families. Parents were great. I can say that. My parents are just a blessing. They always have been. But somewhere something happened, right? I mean, somewhere in our past, something happened that maybe, given us abandonment issues. And that was my case. So I had to dig deep and reparent that part of my younger self where I had that abandonment issue, and I had to find it and then work on it. And that's what, brought me to a point where I could then move forward. And that's how I help people.
So she kind of gave you a gift.
She gave me a gift. She did. I can look back and I mean, this is someone that I have not spoken to since March 24th or 25th. 2019, since the day I walked out of her door. I walked out of her place. But what I thought was something that, this is just going to kill me. I'm never going to get over this. Actually has turned into something that if I were to ever run across her again or see her, which, the chances are probably pretty slim, but I would almost want to say, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
thank you for showing me what love isn't. Thank you for showing me what I don't deserve, but what I do deserve. Thank you for showing me
Yeah.
thank you for showing me how not to love somebody, how what love isn't, So you hit on a really good point there, Ken. I think it was a gift. It was a blessing in disguise. It was a lesson I
Yeah.
never wanted to learn, but I think I had to
No.
learn it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, later in life, this might have caused you issues, or it may never have come up again. And but you would have not unlocked. I think through unlocking that pain, you find peace, and now you've got a journey to share with somebody else. You can hold somebody else's hand on that journey.
Exactly. I mean, to live is to suffer, right? But to survive is to find meaning in that suffering, right? And I think the meaning that I have found in it is how is first of all my work with patients in the mental health field, but also now through authoring this book that I'm writing about, the shocking truth behind toxic relationships and accepting scraps of affection. Speaking to organizations and companies and associations about toxic relationships, about self-esteem. Because see, the biggest tool that I have to use to help people is rebuilding self-worth. And I think that's the basis of it. And I use what I like to call my 3 lists. It's my list of wants, my list of needs, and my list of expectations, because those are right. What am I going to accept? What are my non-negotiables? Right? Hey, we all deserve to have them, Ken. We all.
I love the expectations part. At least throw it out there.
You have to, because that's how you build boundaries. That's something that I was never able to do. I was never able to establish boundaries and say, hey, wait a minute. I have needs too that I need fulfilled.
Right.
And it's okay that I express those. It's okay for Brian to have needs. It's okay for Ken to have needs. We're not just put on this earth as human doers. We're human beings. We're not here just to do. And it took me a long time to realize that. And I have been, I was codependent for a very long time. I had a very anxious attachment style. And
very interesting is your work is very service mind. Like the work you're doing is even before all this happened is even a little telling, right?
Yes, it is, because those of us that work in the helping professions like healthcare, that's we do for others, right? We do for others because we care about people.
You're a great target for narcissists.
Exactly, because I'm an empath.
I know where I'm going.
And I'll tell you, narcissists, they can zero in on an empath like 10 miles away.
Well, I mean, it's just like a bloody piece of burger, right? It's just like a medium rare hamburger in front of them. I'm sure they can smell it.
It's just like mouth watering, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And do they? I mean, they must be a bit like a zombie vessel themselves, right? They can't actually know how they're operating.
They do and they don't, but there are people that have. I've found that they are people that are empty inside. They are simply empty souls who are lost puppies, and they latch on to people that they think are easy targets because they're empathetic, and they use them as what we call fuel to get what they want. They're not in it because they love you and want to have a relationship with you.
Yeah. Well, okay. So they never really get to that place, you think?
No. And, they always just keep you just far enough at bay so that they don't get too close, but they keep you hooked in so they can get what they want. Like in this relationship, I would do everything. I would do everything for her. I would, hey, I lost my driver's license. Okay, well, it's okay. I'll take care of it. We'll get you to the motor vehicle department. I got it. You need this done.
Wait a minute. You're talking about my friend's girlfriend.
Really?
Like that's a thing. Oh my God. So hold on. I know somebody. So I want to
tell somebody.
I know somebody that needs this. So Brian and I were talking offline, and he's got an offer for everybody listening. So if you're watching the video, if you're watching this right now, on somewhere, you can see the number up on top, but you just type the word toxic and you send that as a text to 33777. And then what do they get, Brian?
So what they get is they get my toxic relationships checklist, and it's just a very simple checklist of things that they can look at it, and it'll help them think about and determine if, hey, maybe I might be in a toxic relationship. And from there, it talks a little bit about the book that I'm writing and how how your listeners can get in touch with me if they want to learn more about the book. And when they text toxic to 33777, what it's going to do is it's going to send them send them a text, and it'll also send them an email, because it'll ask for their email address, and it'll send them an email from me with a link to this checklist, and it'll also let them know how they can interact with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and how they can keep up with me and keep up with the work that I'm doing. And I do this because I want to reach as many people as possible. I want to help as many people as possible out there.
I'm in.
You're in, right?
I'm in.
You're gonna
Ken. You're gonna check your inbox.
Check your inbox, Ken. You're in. You are in. And I'm not going to spam your inboxes or anything, but it's a way for me to give you some information so you can stay in touch with me. And I speak on this on these topics. I do coaching. I have two very specific coaching programs. One's tailored for women and one's tailored for men, and they're specifically tailored towards the unique wants, needs. Men and women are built differently, and it's tailored. They're each is tailored to that. So I've come up with two very good programs that have thus far been quite successul in helping people. And we go back and we do everything that I talked about as far as hey, where did this start? Where did this wound or injury start when I was younger?
Yeah,
so it had to start somewhere. Let's work on that. Let's work through that, and let's bring us up to the present date. Let's bring us up to the present time and see how that's affecting our interactions right now. Because
with people,
because what I really want people to do is recultivate their self-esteem. By recultivating their self-esteem and building that rock solid self-worth based on wants, needs, and expectations of having a really good foundation of, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I'll accept and what I won't accept in future relationships or anything in my life. I'm building these boundaries now. So now I can move forward, and I can proceed into future relationships by building connection in an intentional manner, and not just falling back into self-defeating behavior patterns and behaviors and patterns that just don't serve you anymore.
That don't serve you. I love that the way that comes out, right? Stuff that just maybe served me at one point. Not going to make a judgment, but right now it's not good for me.
And it may not have ever even served you, but it might have been all you ever. It may have been all you ever knew. It may.
We'll just ignore it.
Yeah, it just may have been whatever was part of your archetype.
Yeah, so. It's part. How about workplace? This is an interesting, because you've got the individuals, you got males, you got boys, you got girls.
Right.
What about bosses? Because bosses can be. I mean, that's like terrorism on a mass scale.
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned workplace, because that's I also do work in the corporate wellness space, and there's a lot of toxicity in the workplace, but what I found is a lot of that toxicity comes in from individual employees and leaders who have toxic interpersonal relationships outside of work.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely manifesting itself and played out at the workplace.
Right.
100% agree.
Part of who they are.
Yeah.
And, it unfortunately, employees and, leadership and those that are part of organizations and corporations, companies, when they are dealing with something else, they always say, hey, leave your personal issues at the door. Well, you and I
Right.
both know that's really hard to do.
Sure.
It's hard to do. I mean,
Sure.
it's not very realistic, because I mean, we're multifaceted people. We have an outside life and a work life. I mean, we have many different lives, right? So, when people bring in, what's going on with them from the outside into work, it really disrupts and can throw a kink in workplace culture, in in workplace wellness, and in productivity. So,
Everything.
so having rough interpersonal relationships can really have an effect on, overall cultural corporate wellness. And I think that's an area that corporate wellness has been touched upon. They've been doing some work there, but I don't know if they've really ventured into the relationships part of mental health when they talk about corporate wellness.
I'm not even aware that was a term. And
Corporate
as soon
wellness,
as you
yes,
as soon as you said it, it was like, whoa, I haven't heard that before.
It's
And that
becoming
makes a lot of sense.
it's becoming a very big thing, and a lot of organizations are actually hiring and bringing on they're bringing on chief wellness officers, just like they have
Awesome.
just like chief executive officers, chief operating officers, chief financial officers. They're bringing in chief wellness officers to look at.
You and I should start applying for some of those.
I think I've got enough on my plate, but it's but what it does is it allows me to connect with somebody in the corporate space to be able to help facilitate, what they're doing, what they're tasked to do in their organization. So
I'm gonna get on LinkedIn, and I'm gonna search job titles for corporate.
You're gonna find a lot on LinkedIn. If you use that as one of your search keys, you're gonna find corporate wellness. You're gonna find a lot of it. I guarantee you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always learning. I'm always learning. I mean, that's one fun thing about this show is meet so many people and hear so many stories. I think that's a great place. I think the individual part for you is interesting, but I think I think your understanding of this space and corporate is a great place, a place you could do a lot of good for companies. You've got the speech, right? You got your keynote speeches you can do, or even a small group talk. You kick it off, and if you've got a program to go in there, and man, it won't take long before people out the narcissist. And
right. I mean, it's just because these are people that are there are people that are that are very toxic people that are leading organizations and
sometimes departments, right? It's exactly. You could have you're going to have 3 or 4, and probably most of them might even be on the board, or not on the board, but on the executive table.
Hey, you could find them anywhere from middle management all the way up.
Or even the janitor's probably a narcissist.
I mean, you could find it anywhere. And the unfortunate thing is these people are leading the organizations that are questioning why they are having the problems they're having with employee retention.
Yeah. Oh, I've worked in corporate enough where you can see where there are certain leaders, and I don't know, looking back, what I would make any kind of a profile judgment. But it's clear you have certain people who in organizations but they're strong-minded too. So they're hard to get out. So this makes me think a lot of these people were narcissists, because they're very well positioned inside a company. They're smart, they're clever, they're very difficult to extract. And they're powerful because they've got a lot of people under their spell.
Yes. And, and like I said, I think a lot of that comes from aspects and experiences in their personal lives that have made them who they are, and they are just bringing it into they're bringing it into their job with them.
It's painful. I mean, everybody we meet, everybody's got a story, right? And you just don't know what their life was like, and the examples. you're not born a narcissist. You are forged in a fire of hell, probably. And
I do believe that you are not born a narcissist. I do believe that there are certain experiences and parts of your, I say your, your archetype, but
okay,
there are
yeah,
things that have happened to you in the course of your
yeah,
life, probably from a very young age, that have made you who and what you are.
yes, yeah,
Um, and it's, it could be, an alcoholic or drug addict parent who
yep,
present. It could be parents who had narcissistic tendencies that just walked all over
mm,
people. It could be a lot of, things, but just getting back to, like, when I said that these were lessons I never wanted to have to learn,
yeah,
but I'm thankful that I did, because
mm,
it has taught me a lot about myself, but it's also opened up an opportunity for me to now help others and equip others with the
yeah.
tools that I didn't necessarily have. If I would have
I
had
love
all
it.
this information, if I would have known, I need to go back and fix
Right.
what hurt, what was hurt when I was a kid. I need to rebuild my self-esteem. I need to build boundaries. If you would have
God,
told me, if
right.
you'd have told me that in 2019, I wouldn't. I would have just been like, okay, yeah, whatever. I would be like, no, but I love her. I can change her. I love her. I love her. I can change her, but you can't. You're not going to change her.
Oh man, yeah, when you're under the spell, you can do anything, right?
Yeah, you think you can, and you think, oh, maybe tomorrow maybe it'll just be better. Yeah, it might be better tomorrow, but the next day it's gonna be a dumpster fire again. It's just this cycle.
Oh God. All
So
right, awesome conversation. I really appreciate you spending the time.
absolutely.
Any kind of closing thoughts? Any kind of anything you want to kind of share?
Well, first of all, I would just like to honor you and thank you, Ken, for providing this space for us to have these important conversations. I think the work that you do is really important, and
Thank you.
just traveling around, just talking to people, like you said, it's all about stories, and it's all about hearing
Mhm.
stories, and we all can connect as human beings. We all can find some commonality,
Yes,
and I
agree.
think I think in life we go through we go through things in life that we think, hey, am I the only one going through this? But the truth is we're
Hmm.
not. And I think by sharing stories, and you know sharing stories and of how we overcome things, I think that's how we help ourselves and help other people. So I just want to thank you and honor you for providing this beautiful space for us to have these important conversations. And I want to
Thank
thank
you.
your listener. I want to thank your listeners too, for for tuning in. And it is my hope that that if I can just reach one person out there.
This
I
is this is the thing. There's a really good interview with Charlie Rose and uh, Mr. Rogers, and it's just beautiful. I mean, Charlie just gives him that magnanimous, intro, which is you've touched millions of. I mean, how many
Sure,
millions of young men and young girls have watched you? And the
absolutely.
messages, and and it's just like you get tingles when you think about how big of a influence he was and what a great person he was, and then he just says, Charlie, if I just help that one boy,
Yep, exactly. I've seen that. I
I
think
my life. Oh, you've seen that one, and it's
I
just
think I
like,
have. Now that you mentioned it, I think I might have seen it somewhere, and it's
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
like how humble can you be, right? Like,
oh
oh
yeah,
man,
Fred Rogers definitely taught us a
Fred,
lot of
yeah,
lessons about life. So I remember watching Mr. Rogers as a kid. So I
yeah,
think I think we can all take some valuable lessons from that. And like I said, if our conversation today can help one
yeah,
person, I encourage your listeners to keep in touch with me. And if anything that we talked about today resonates with them, I would absolutely love to hear from them. And
yeah,
you know, I like I said, if I can reach just one of them and give them what I didn't have when I was going through what I went
yeah.
through, I would feel my work is done. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, for anybody listening, if you're kind of concerned about your relationship that you're in, just text the word toxic to 33777. And if you know of anybody that's in a relationship and you're trying to, and you know it's not healthy for them and you're trying to help them get out, conversation, like Brian said, is very difficult. So, try this approach. See if you can share that with them. Like I was kind of rudely jumped in and sent my friend a text right away. As soon as I heard you say lost your driver's license and driving, I was like, oh my God, that's actually a real story. Hold on. I got to text my friend.
It's a real story. Yeah. I mean, and that's just one example. So,
well, it's a real story for my friend, which is the funny part.
Hey,
he was just sharing with me the other day. He's like, I even have to go to the stupid DM, and I was like, wow, I wouldn't do that. That's bananas, bro. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. So, and it's the things we do for love, right? So
things we do for love.
Exactly.
Oh, Brian, man, again, thanks so much. Thanks again, Ken. Everybody. 33777, text the word toxic, and you can find Brian. Really, just a quick Google search, Brian Abel, and you'll find him. And LinkedIn is really, you're quite active on LinkedIn. You got a good profile
LinkedIn, there. Facebook, Instagram. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thanks again, Brian. Thanks everybody for supporting mental health today. Like Brian said, having a place for these conversations is so important, and a great place to kind of a resource, a place that'll actually also sit here and reside as a library. And, and I think that's, Brian, your stuff will be on there and it'll be searchable. If anybody comes up and looks at the website for toxic relationships or a narcissist, this episode and your conversation will come up.
Well, I hope to reach as many people as we can, Ken.
Yeah, me too. Thanks again. And I'll see you in 30 seconds. Stick around.
Thanks, Ken.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, loose, baby.
We're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals in public glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glassblowing. Yeah, we're going to go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.